So when we put these 4 levels of creativity together, we can think about this in terms of the amount of space of overall creativity and the amount of time of overall creativity that these 4 different levels take up. So everyday creativity, or little c creativity, takes up sort of the most amount of time and space of creative acts. Because we are all engaging in little c creativity anytime we do an art or craft, anytime you really think about the picture you're going to take for Instagram, right? Anytime you spend some time like learning a TikTok dance and then interpreting it in your own, these are all everyday little c creativity. The next level, the next amount of space is transformative or mini C creativity. And that's because we have a lot to learn about the world when we're very young, and then we have less and less and less sort of foundational knowledge to learn about the world as we get older. You have to make a purposeful effort to learn new things once you're sort of done with formal education, right? So that transformative mini C creativity takes up a little bit less space. Then professional level creativity and genius level creativity take up even less and less space in the overall creative space, because only a few people can really change the world. It takes an incredible amount of expertise to know what part of the world to change, and then a lot of time and a lot of resources to do it. Similarly, with professional level creativity, you have to get other people to pay you, right? You have to be enough of an expert with enough newness, innovation, and appropriateness for the problem that you're approaching in order to have enough value that other people want to pay you for this. Now, these boundaries are porous. So another way you can think about it is, let's imagine that you decide you want to learn how to make earrings. So what you do is you buy a basic jewelry making kit and you start learning how to put together different materials, different color combinations, how heavy is too heavy, how light is too light, and you put together some jewelry for yourself. So that's engaging in this mini C level of creativity. Then, over time, you start to give these earrings away to your friends. And your friends are like, oh my God, these are so cute. Thank you so much. I love them. You're giving them away for birthday gifts or what have you. And over time, your friends are like, you know, these earrings are actually pretty awesome. You should go to a crafts fair and sell some of these earrings. Once you go from that little C, where you're just making earrings for yourself and for your friends, into moving to the crafts fair where people start paying for them for you, now you're in professional level of creativity. Now you have to start keeping up with demand, right? You can't necessarily innovate all the time because people like you for the earrings that you're making. So now you're making lots of earrings of just that kind that people are paying you for. Now let's imagine that a giant jewelry company says, that design is like one of the best, most innovative ones we've seen. We're going to pay you $100 million for your design, and we're going to make all those earrings, and everybody's going to wear them for many years. Now you've changed the earring game, and you're in genius big C level of creativity, right? So all of these boundaries between these 4 levels are porous. And you can sort of think of them in this way: engaging sociocultural significance and impact at an increasing level as you move up, and having the context for their implementation increasing over time. So mini-C is just personal, meaningful interpretations of experiences and changes in your own understanding. Little c is everyday creativity and impacting individuals within your immediate personal zone. Pro C is creative acts by experts and expertise that has implications for an organization, a field, a system of practice, or a market. And then big C has impact on culture, society, and the world. So as you learn more and gain more and more expertise, you have the option to move into big C creativity, but it's not automatic, right? And the reason it's not automatic is because of the different levels of gatekeepers that have to approve you in order to keep going up the levels of creativity. When we were sort of in the 1800s with classical music, you had just a few, right, experts in music, right, the aristocracy and people who could afford to go to concerts that would make judgments about whose compositions got to be played and who got to engage with the music. Now, anybody can create some music and put it up on SoundCloud, and you can get like 100,000, 200,000, a million people listening to their music, right? Or you can put it up on TikTok and all of a sudden it becomes a viral song and 700 million people can view the videos that use your viral song, right? So the question of where the gatekeepers are has changed significantly over time and is different culturally, right? Different cultures and different subcultures have different artistic practices and artistic norms, and therefore who gets to be creative in those artistic spaces is different culture by culture. Okay. So before I move into some research studies that we've done in my lab specifically, are there any questions? What questions can I answer about the 4C model of creativity or creative practice more generally? Yeah?
Do you find the concept of gatekeeping certain forms of creativity toxic?
I mean, so gatekeeping as it is currently used in online discourse is very different than gatekeeping as it's traditionally used in the psychology of creativity, right? So gatekeeping as it's currently used, and my knowledge about this comes entirely from my Psych of Creativity class explaining internet gatekeeping to me like 2.5 months ago. So it may have already changed from how I understand it. My understanding with online gatekeeping is like you keep things a secret because you don't want other people to have the same things that you have. And then the anti-gatekeeping is you're sharing it because you want other people to know about this cool thing that you learned about, right? That is different than sort of professional level artistic gatekeeping, right? Professional level artistic gatekeeping is the owner of the gallery decides which works of art to let into their gallery and therefore who gets to make money off of their art. Gatekeeping is both problematic in that it keeps things from moving to a wider audience, but also in some ways, in the traditional form of gatekeeping, there's a level of expertise that you have to have in order to know what is creative and what is not. Because if you don't have a high level of expertise in a particular field, you can't know whether or not something is new, right? So what the internet and social media has done is democratize the idea of newness. Because something may be new to you and differently new to you and not new to you because you've seen it before, right? Or something may be new to a segment of the population that isn't engaged with that culture, but a different segment of the population, like that's part of how they grew up because it's part of their ethnic or racial culture, right? And so the idea of having enough expertise to know when something is new and when something is appropriate is part of the traditional gatekeeping structure. Keeping something a secret because you don't want other people to copy you is not part of that like traditional gatekeeping definition. And so is it toxic in the way that current discussions on the internet say it is? I would say probably yes, right? If we want information to be free, if we want aesthetics to be free, if we want knowledge to be free, free meaning able to move across borders, not free as in you don't have to pay for it. Please pay for art. Artists can't survive if you don't pay for art. Keeping people from knowing about something because you want it for selfish reasons is problematic. Expertise, though, is not problematic. Expertise is necessary in order to help culture move forward. Other questions about creativity? Great. Everybody turn to your neighbor and ask them one question about creativity. All right, so, am I still on? I am. Given that moment to think about it, does anybody have a question about creativity that they actually would like answered? Yeah?
So, since you talked about like aesthetics being in the eye of the beholder, so say this art gallery owner, how would they maybe decide for the masses what is new and creative, rather than like we talked about Jackson Pollock? So
Yes.
Splatters on a palette. Who decided that was new and appropriate rather than just new?
Yes, that's a great question. How do you get both aspects of new and appropriate, particularly when you're talking about genre bending, right? Or when you're talking about sort of breaking traditional molds. So the idea behind something like artistic expertise is that you have both a wide range of previous experiences and an understanding of your own aesthetic palette. So the wide range of experiences means you can understand that Jackson Pollock is new because you have seen art from all over the world and you've never seen anything like this before, right? So a young child encountering Picasso for the first time is going to go, oh my God, what a weird painting. A very young child encountering a high school student who was asked to create a work of art in the style of Picasso for the very first time is going to go, oh my God, what a weird painting, right? Because that child has never seen Picasso-style art before. So it doesn't particularly matter to them whether they're looking at a Picasso painting for the first time or whether they're looking at a high school student's painting who was asked to paint in the style of Picasso, because what's new to them is the style of painting. So it does actually matter who was the first person to come up with the idea, right? When it comes to sort of making a judgment about who is creative. Appropriateness is more about the aesthetic sense or aesthetic judgment of whether or not an artwork makes the person feel something, think about something, engage with their world differently than they had to before. And this is where classical art versus modern art versus contemporary art starts to get a little funky. Because as we move away from more classic representational forms of art, right, still lives, pictures, and portraits, into more representational art like, you know, Picasso's mixed up faces or just an entire canvas that's just blue, right, something like that, it becomes more important to have an artist's statement, right? Why did the artist make this art? What problem did they have in mind that they were trying to resolve? And then it's up to the aesthetic sense of that gallery owner to make a judgment about whether or not that art is actually doing the thing they want to. And this is where it becomes a problem when you don't have diversity in your gallery owners, right? Because then you have just one aesthetic sense that's been sort of talked about within this small group of people that hasn't gone outside of just their culture. It hasn't gone outside of just their range of experiences. So this is where the democratization of art judgment sort of through social media can be a really good thing, because you're not just dependent now on the one gallery owner and his small group of friends to make the aesthetic judgment about whether or not the work of art solves the problem that they originally had a question about. Does that answer your question? Great. Anybody else? Sure?
Do you think with like the
Hold the mic a little closer.
Do you think with the practice of things like the internet and basically having this giant global stage for people to look at what you're presenting as your form of creativity, do you think it's become harder or easier to enter that big C stage of creativity?
Yeah. So the question, did everybody hear the question? The question is it harder or easier to enter big C now that the internet has sort of democratized what we consider to be creative? The answer is both, right? The answer is it's easier for more people to see your work quickly. It is harder to make a lasting impact, right? Because we can all think of songs that were popular 4 years ago that everybody listened to 4 years ago and nobody listens to now anymore, right? So it's much easier for things to rise and fall quickly because culture is moving much faster now and cultural turnover is much faster now than it used to be. So because of that, it's easier to get a lot of people to pay attention to you, right? You're not waiting for a record label executive to sign you and put out a record or whatever before a lot of people can listen to you. You can get a lot of people to listen to you. If you wrote a song tonight and posted it on SoundCloud tomorrow, you could, by the end of next week, have more people listen to you than if you played 100 open mic nights. Right? Like, it's very easy to get a lot of attention quickly. What's harder is staying power because there's more distributed things to look at, right? So, for example, when the Friends finale aired in, 2005, like, a majority of the people in the United States saw that episode of television. Now, entire shows come and go, and most of Americans don't watch them. Right? And it's just because the field has gotten more saturated that it becomes easier to get professional level creativity and harder in that way to get big C level creativity.